Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my power ranking series. For the number 2017, we're going to be looking at the New York Giants. All right, so some big moves here for the Giants on offense. First off, they brought in Feliciano, who should be very familiar with this offense. He's played with Dale before on the Bills. They just released him recently. So he should give a decent level of base play. Because of those things, he should be just an easy plug and play starter. I wouldn't expect anything too great, but he'll be an immediate starter and an immediate upgrade to what they've had. They also brought in Glowinski from the Colts. He had a really battle for his position at the Colts facility last year, and he proved the victor anyways. So after that acquisition, that should also really help fill in the interior. They let a couple guys go, and bringing him in, I think it was on a 3-year contract, if I remember correctly. That should really just improve the interior yet again, as well as he's also a scheme fit. The real big question here on the interior, though, is Lemieux. I don't really think he's a great solution. He hasn't really shown much to me to really say I have any confidence in him to be a good starter. Thinking of him as a prospect again, I wasn't overly excited about that either. And clearly they're not so sure about it either. They drafted Azudu really early on. Like I think most people had him as I think the earliest I ever saw him was a late fifth round flyer. I had him in the 6, 7 range. They took him in the third. They clearly don't overly want to rely on Lemieux either. They want someone with high upside as their future at that position, so hence why they drafted a more athletic project really early on. He's nowhere near ready to start. I think I've made that clear enough. But in the long term, if you can train him with those athletic traits, could be a good solution going on here. But again, it's not helping you this season. Offensive tackle situation, really not much to talk about. It's phenomenal here. Andrew Thomas is really starting to come into his own as a starter at left tackle. And then they drafted Evan Neal early in the first round. They had 2 early first round picks. Neal was my number 1 prospect on my board this last draft. And he's extremely used to playing at right tackle as well. He's used to playing at both, and he has actual experience against really high competition at both. So getting him to come in, take that right tackle spot while you let Andrew Thomas take the left, phenomenal job. I love to see it. So, really nothing else to talk about there other than the fact that I believe they have a tackle duo for the next at least decade. Quarterback situation, though, that's where this gets a little more interesting. So, they brought in Tyrod Taylor. He's a decent vet. He gives good base value as a backup, but he also can be a fill-in starter if need be. We've seen him kind of take over a game. He's been kind of all around the league at this point. He's at this journeyman quarterback stage of his career. It's about appropriate for what he's capable of. They still have Daniel Jones though taking the lead. Jones is really the biggest question mark of this group. He still has a lot of the same issues, and I mean a lot of the same issues that were there when he was drafted. Like he still has a constant mishandling of the ball, which leads to like the most fumbles I've ever seen of a quarterback, and he's still completely oblivious to any rushers that are coming around him. He has no feel for them at all. And that was a problem that he had as a prospect, and that is a problem he has 4 years in here. So I don't know how much you really want to rely on him to continue to develop. Yeah, he does have enough ability to lead an offense, but it's almost in the same breadth of when we're talking about Davis Mills. Like Daniel Jones here is kind of what I have as the cap of Davis Mills. Is someone who can maintain a rhythm on offense, and they're viable if they can keep pushing the ball downfield. They can, move a little. Jones does have some straight line speed, although it's very clumsy. It's just there's a lot of errors here, and this is not even talking about them. My mental processor of him, right? How he interprets a defense is it has its own faults. But I'm gonna worry about more of the more physical things of him constantly turning over the ball and getting blasted in the backfield. I'd rather correct that first. But this is his best opportunity he's had. He is with a very good offensive mind in Dable this time around. who is now taking the head coach spot. So it's make or break time for Jones. They didn't pick up his 5th year for a reason. I don't imagine it's going to work out if I'm going to be entirely honest. However, it's worth giving the chance. That's why Taylor was brought in just in case. But it's make or break time for him. Okay, backfield and receivers. So on paper, it is really much the same as last year, and it really looks good on paper. Like it looks excellent on paper. I believe that its shortcomings really had to do with scheme and coaching, which is really what Dable's here to make a lot better. So we got Sterling Shepard. He was reworked to a 1-year deal. They're probably going to let him go after because they really have cap issues, as seen by Bradbury being released a little while ago. They couldn't even sign their rookies. So he's on the 1 year now. He's still above average as a slot wide receiver. He should do well in Dable's scheme here. Most of these kind of like slot type guys tend to do very well in Dable's scheme. They also have Darius Slayton still. He's coming to the end of his contract. He'll be taking that Gabriel Davis role, which he projects pretty well in. Another thing Dale's super used to having, and it should be a good fit to immediately get going here. He'll be looking kind of stretch the field and kind of take the top off defenses more or less as his kind of lankier, taller, deep threat. It might help him get paid by a team this offseason. I doubt it's by the Giants. But it's a good kind of pro thing for the Giants there. They might be able to get some comp picks from it. Biggest name here, Kenny Golladay. He's their number one. He's their X receiver. Uh, I expect him to return to form here. If you cannot return to form with Dable and this team, I mean, at that point, then we gotta start talking about whether it's just the Alshon Jeffrey part of his career. It's just time to let him go. Uh, but I don't think that's how this is gonna go. Unless maybe like there's maybe one situation where Daniel Jones really just cannot throw for whatever reason. He somehow regresses. Maybe you give Galladay another year after that. I know he's on a 3-year contract, but regardless, I know he's a different build from what Dable's typically utilized, but I do trust Dable. He's earned the benefit of the doubt in that retrospect that he can have a nice, I won't just say career, but he should at least have a nice couple seasons here. Whether they let him go or retain him afterwards is really going to be up to how much of a nice season he has. He tracks the ball well and he stacks DBs pretty well as well. I do have question marks beside Tony's name here, as his situation with the Giants is just kind of odd. There was a long period of time where he was refusing to show up to the team's facility. He didn't want to get the new playbook. He had no interest in meeting the coaches, which is kind of what started the rumors of him being traded. Kind of started. And those rumors were further supported by the Giants doing another reach and drafting Wan'Dale Robinson here, like pretty early on. Again, most people I know had Wan'Dale maybe late third. I had him in the fourth. They take him in the second. He's another scheme fit. If Tony is moved, Robinson can take his role. If not, Robinson still fits a lot of the other roles here. He's kind of good as a utility weapon. So I think that's kind of what they were looking at when they're wanting to take Robinson so early. They wanted to guarantee they got him. Uh, I'm not overly confident Tony will be playing for this team just because of that move, but I will half consider him here from the time being. He has finally gone and met the coaches and picked up the playbook, but we'll see what comes of it. Tight end room, there is depth here. I don't think it's either a mix of. I don't think people are worth really talking about too much right now, or people I think are going to require a little bit of time to get up to speed to the point of I don't expect them to really take many snaps this season unless things really go poorly. I know they drafted a guy in the fourth round. I can't remember his name right now, but he projects pretty well for what Dable likes out of his tight ends. But I think it's gonna take a little bit before he's ready. So I won't talk too much on that end. Seals Jones is who they have listed as a starter. I imagine that's probably what's going to continue to be who the starter is going in through preseason. He's a replaceable level backup tight end. He has a ton of experience. He should participate in this offense. Nothing really more there. Running back room, it's a mix of youth and guys who've played for Dable before. Some kind of situational guys like Burita. The big name here, though, is really obviously Saquon Barkley, who's had kind of a weird career point since his first real season. Injury, up and down seasons, just kind of rough. One could point to the fact that the Giants have really struggled on offense. That might be the reason why such a very clearly talented athlete can't really get anything going. It's just something to kind of keep a note on. He's still poor at pass blocking if you do want to knock him on anything. And his vision every now and again is somewhat faulty. He goes off a lot of feel. But I imagine that Dable, if anyone can kind of get Barkley going with this crew, Dable probably could get him going. This is probably the best running back Dable's had in recent memory. I'm trying to think because Dable's gone around. He's coached for Bill Belichick and Saban, but in definitely recent era, he's been with the Bills the last 4 years. Definitely recent era. This is the best back he's had. But maybe now that Dable's here, they can kind of get him going as a runner of the offense, and hopefully the teams will get just load the box and just poorly just be on the guy. All right, down to the defensive side of the ball. Defense still most of the same as it was last year, except now that there's a different scheme fit, we're kind of looking at different things. The linebackers that were here beforehand, they're just not good and they don't really fit Martindale's defense. I mean, Martinez, they reworked his deal, so he's going to be leaving again after this season. Doesn't fit the scheme at all. He'll be probably going to try another, maybe some kind of hybrid look. He's mostly just kind of a tackler and a guy who has zero kind of fill or ability to drop. Although he did show some improvement switching up his diet going in last season, but it's clear he's reached his cap. And why Tate Crowder is still listed as their starter is kind of beyond me. He's gonna have to take a superhuman level leap in ability for me to be okay that he's still there. The rookies though, the rookies are good. I like the rookies they took. Both play run defense very well. They fit this kind of move and drop scheme look in Martindale's defense. Beavers especially is very versatile as a linebacker and was a personal favorite of mine due to that very unique skill set. He can be blitzed very nicely as well on the edge or in the middle. He fits that. He's a very sound player, not an extreme athlete, but he still does that hybrid work really well. So I like that they took guys who were young, had a bit of upside, and do fit the scheme pretty well. There's some good starters still here though. Leonard Williams and Lawrence still here. I imagine they'll still be plugging the run lanes and shedding, getting some good pressure on the middle, but not like no one overly exciting. Like I don't know if Leonard Williams is going to live up to the contract they're paying him at now that they're out of that 3-3-5 because Leonard Williams is kind of a unique player that can only play that. But I think he'll give you above average pass rush. And Lawrence should at least be able to push the pocket. I don't expect much more out of him, but I think they'll be decent again this season. Aziz Ojulari, he was a good selection last year. I like it a lot. Take him to fill that edge role that this time will occasionally drop into coverage. It won't be a pure hybrid look, if I imagine, but maybe they'll surprise me a little bit more. Either way, though, Ojulari should be comfortable in this defense again. He's not switching up what he's used to very much. The big name here drafted was Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Thibodeau has basically the complete makeup of an elite number one edge player, and he's a great scheme fit here. Strong run defender, has insane athletic ability, and that ability completely makes him viable to have a complete tool belt as a pass rusher. The biggest critique I saw of him was that he is business oriented, which is kind of crazy talk to me. Of course, he's business oriented. This is a business. He is focused on football. He is very well aware that he has to build a brand of himself and to be able to do investments. He has to build himself up as a player. That's not a thought lost on him. I, I just thought that was one of the weirdest draft day critiques showing up to that day, and clearly the Giants did not fall for it. It was a good selection by them. Secondary hasn't changed much besides the release of Bradbury. And Logan Ryan was also let go to let Love take over. I do prefer Love as a slot corner, but I think he can manage here at free safety in this defense. Dane Belton was also taken as a future selection here. I don't think he's ready to start this season, but I think he can look to compete to take over next season. McKinney finally kind of getting his real go here with Peppers gone. I like him for this scheme a lot. It fully utilizes his range and man coverage ability. I see improvement in his play here now in this system, if anything. There's a Dory Jackson as well, another good scheme fit and a good player, but his biggest knock is that he's just not available enough. Like I can't remember honestly how many games he plays a season, like 8, 10, maybe. Like you're gonna get a good half a season out of him, which is really not what you want to see, especially now that he's gonna have to be your cornerback one with Bradbury gone. And there's also the knock that he isn't very tall and he's not very heavy. He's really kind of, you know, how do I say, just kind of a more shorter, stout player, which means this really tall, lanky guys might be able to just kind of box him out, which is a problem. At the other corner spot, though, we have a battle between two corners in Robinson and Williams. They're really going to be competing for that other spot. I liked both prospects from last year's draft class. I think both fit this defensive scheme, and I do expect it to be a pretty fun battle to watch. Just something to keep an eye on during the preseason. Slot corner, pretty nice. We do have Cordell Flott. Was a personal favorite corner of mine that was very, kind of early on to saying he's a prospect we should be looking at. He's very young. He plays with high energy. He should be pretty good in taking that slot corner 2 role for those dime looks. And he can develop here behind Darnay Holmes, who I think has proven himself capable enough as a slot corner when put into that role. I think it's a very young and exciting crew here for the secondary. It's a good building block to build off of. Although for sure you're dipping down in ability a little bit with letting Bradbury go, and if Jackson can't stay healthy, that's when things start to unravel a little more. All right, special teams. They look nice here. There's tons of players that project to play these special teams positions very well, like Gunner and all those other stuff. I think for the more like actual special teamers, there's a worthwhile shot here in Gillian. I actually do like Gilliam as a punter. I think he wasn't rated very high, and I'm not sure why. I actually think he's a decent punter, so I think that was a worthwhile shot by them. They still have a real seasoned vet who's coming off another nice year at kicker in Graham Gano. So it's a good crew. It's also a good crew for the coordinator spots. It is a heck of a crew when you look at the coaching. All these guys have been highly regarded, very regarded and sought after by most of these teams, and for pretty good reason. Dable's assembled a real hell of a crew here to run this ship in New York. I'm very impressed. Dable himself, very desired as a coach, and he really waited to kind of take a head coaching spot until he saw one he liked. Clearly, that was the Giants situation was one that intrigued him a lot. He's an excellent offensive mind, as seen with his work with Josh Allen and the Bills over the last few years. And when I did some prodding, he was described to me as a very compassionate and loved man by staff and players alike. So I think the Giants got not only a very good head coach, but a very good coaching staff behind him that he was able to assemble. So Giants, please, like this is what a Hall of Fame crew looks like. You got to keep them happy and close. Whatever it requires to keep them going, you do it. So overall, this Giants team, I really expect to have some growing pains early on as they're transitioning to 2 different schemes on offense and defense. It's a complete gutting of coaching. I like the foundation that they've built and the pieces they have set, but it's going to take a little bit. This is an elite coaching group, and the team itself is poised, I think, pretty well for the future, for not just next year, but years to come. If certain things do actually pan out the way they are projected to, that's kind of what separated them from the rest of the guys underneath them. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you for the next one. Later.